Aloha mai kākou, o ka ʻimi pono hano koʻu inoa. Aloha, my name is Kaimi Pono Hano. I have the opportunity to work for Mauli Olama Lama Lama, our healthcare workforce development center here at Papaʻolelo Kahi, and welcome to our Ono webinar, He Lala au no Kuʻu Kumu. And it's an honor to be here today. I'm going to get a little bit emotional, kalamai, with Kauka Mālia Purdy. And in thinking of like, how do I even introduce this this beautiful human being to everyone? All I can picture is Malia's kupuna just back in the day, sitting somewhere, manifesting what they want their lala to look like. What do they want their pua to look like? And then Mālia is that result. So I'm gonna just turn the time over to Mālia, and if anybody has any questions, please drop your questions in the Q&A or in the chat. Mahalo for registering for this webinar. The recordings will be available later within 30 days, and just mahalo for being here. And I turn the time over to you, Kauka Purdy.
Mahalo nui e kaimi. Aloha mai kākou. I'm looking at all the inoa that are here, and it is all ohana. And so that makes me super excited to ka'analike this ka'ao that a lot of you contributed to, have been on right by my side the entire time. And so, yeah. Aloha mai kākou, o Mālia Purdy ko'u inoa, o waiahu Maui, ku'u one hanau, o hale akala, ku'u mauna, o iao, ku'u awava, o wailuku, ku'u kahawai, o ka poho, ku'u kai, aloha mai kākou. Ea ka mo'oku au hau o ku'u mau kumu o lalo Hawai'i. Kumu hokulani ho'opadela, kumu kili na mau'u, kumu ipolani maderis, kumu kanoe kanaka ole, kumu kanani baz, kumu io kepa nai ole, kumu puel pata, kumu leina wender, kumu kamaile kekahuna, kumu leina ala kuloloyo, kumu leina ni kana, kumu kau'i Norton, kumu kamaka L. Williams, kumu wailani farm, kumu kale brass, kumu le hua nai ole, kumu moani kekahuna. And to all the other kumu mentors and peers, formal and informal, that really was a source of knowledge and support and growth for me. I share these inoa with you in order to bring them into this space, because the journey that you will hear today is a combination and, you know, is a product of what all these people have poured into me and shared. And I am here because of these kumu, and I honor them. So mahalo nui.
Mahalo Mālia, and that just segues right into our first mino, your kahua. Can we start from there? Can you share about your kahua?
So my educational kahua or foundation really comes from Punana Leo o Maui and Te Kulakaya Puni o Maui. And ironically, tomorrow is Ho'omau to celebrate Aha Punana Leo, and I think 40 years, maybe 30 or 40 years, Maui. And so, you know, Olelo Hawaii has really been always my kahua throughout my entire educational journey. And I think a lot of that has to do with these teachings that were just instilled in us from a very young age. I think still even today, those teachings, you know, and they're like, there are some olelo no ea, or some things that we take away from that, like ho'okahino leo ualapa, nana kamaka ho'olohe ka pepeao pa'akawaha. Like these sayings and these teachings about our lavena and how we are and how we behave when we enter certain spaces, that has just always been how I am. That's because that's what Kumu said to do. So you gotta listen to Kumu. So Punana was definitely the place, you know, the starting point. And then moving on to Kulakaio Puni o Maui Mapaia. And, you know, the biggest lesson that, or my takeaway from that va, I just constantly always remember our kumu telling us, like, you olelo Hawaii, but you live in this English world, so you gotta work twice as hard. You gotta be able to walk in both worlds. You gotta work twice as hard as everybody else. And a perfect example of this was, you know, because I entered Punana Leo kind of in the, you know, the earlier years, where I remember my mom, like my parents, having to okia tuko to translate books, like cutting, because there was no Puke Olelo Hawaii. And so our families had to create that library so that our classrooms would have resources. And now there are Puke printed in Olelo Hawaii. Now we're translating like English mo'olelo into Olelo Hawaii. So it just really, it's beautiful to see the growth of our olelo and how normalized that it is becoming. And so, yeah, during that time of Paia school, that's just always what I remember. Like, we gotta work hard, you know, take the teachings of our kupuna and combine it with your lavena and the way that we behave, and that's how you move differently in the world, right? And then in Kalama, so Kalama was the past part, and that was when we started to integrate with the English side, because Paia school had regular ed and had Hawaiian immersion at Kaiopuni. And so, but we were still learning all in Olelo Hawaii. When we went to Kalama, that's when we had to take English classes. That's when we started to learn in English. And that was an interesting experience, because that's when you learn, like, wow, people are different. Like, how come you're not listening to the kumu? How come you're, you know, like, we just behave a certain way in Kaiopuni because we honor our kumu, and then to see that, hey, there are different, you know, styles of learning and teaching, and so how are we different? And when Olelo Hawaii is your kahua, your entire worldview changes. You see things differently because you know that everything is influenced by your kupuna. And yeah, that's my kahua of Olelo Hawaii, and yeah.
So as you journey to your next level of education, how did your worldview of Kaiopuni play a part in that?
Okay, so for high school, I went to Kamehameha School's Maui campus. And so that was another transition, because I left my papa Kaiopuni. So, you know, if you're not familiar with the papa hana, you are literally with the same class from the time I was in preschool all the way till I was 8th grade. Same kids in my class, seen them every day. They're like my brothers and my sisters. And we still have a super strong pilina. They're still my best friends. They're still the ones I call whenever I need anything. And so leaving them to go to Kamehameha because Kamehameha had just opened up their Maui campus. And so I was part of the second graduating class. That was a really hard time because I wasn't going to be with my papa anymore, right? Like these people that I went to school for all these years, like they were no longer going to be with me. And so during that time, Kamehameha was really focused on college readiness. And to them, that meant going away to college. Like I just remember in high school, all my classmates in high school were just applying to all these colleges all outside of Hawaii. And that's what, you know, like we had special classes just to work on college applications, just to work on scholarships. Like that's what Kamehameha was doing at the time. That's what the charge was. And so when I went there, I was very shocked to know that this is what it meant to be at Kamehameha, which is like a very prestigious, right, school. Everybody tries to get into Kamehameha because of the wonderful programs and the resources and everything that it had to offer to students. And I just, again, like referred back to, okay, walking in two worlds, right? Is this what it means? Like, just because I'm in this different school, it doesn't mean that I cannot bring that ike from Kaiapuni, right? It doesn't mean that I let go of the teachings of my kumu and that I have to change my lavena because now I'm in a different school, right? You kupa'a to what you've learned and you bring it into this next phase of my life at that time. And yeah. Did that answer the question?
Yes, mahalo. Yes, totally. So can you tell us more about what happens after Kamehameha schools and where do you go? And then that worldview, does it change? You take it with you? What happens then?
Yeah, so Mahope o ke kula o Kamehameha, I ended up going to Pacific University in Oregon because I thought I wanted to be an optometrist because my family's eyes, we all have really bad eyes and everybody wears glasses. And my mom, I think I was in high school, but she had to have like corneal transplants in both her eyes. So I was like, okay, you know, this could be cool. And at that time, Pacific was known to be a good school of optometry. So that's how I ended up there. When I was in Oregon, that was, you know, sitting in classes. It's a small private liberal arts school. So the class sizes are like less than 30. But then you would see these students so different from any learning environment I had ever been in. Students that constantly like raise their hands, ask questions, dominating the conversation, like, and I was just shocked. I was like, oh my God, like this is not how I was taught as a learner. And not to say that I didn't have anything to contribute to the discussion or, you know, mana'o to add, but that's just not how I was taught to move and behave, right? Like, nana kamaka ho'olohe ka pepeau pa'a kawaha. Like, you watch with your eyes, you listen with your ears, and you shut your mouth. Like, that is how we learn. And that is still how I learn today. I think that experience going away, you know, I mahalo Kamehameha for pushing me to go away, because it was through that college experience and being away from home that I gained huge, massive amounts of appreciation for our culture and my people. And that's when I was able to acknowledge how lucky and how privileged I was to be brought up with this kahua of Olelo Hawaii, in Kula Kaiapuni, in Punana Leo o Maui. Like, that's going away is what kind of tied it all together. And I would come home for the summers and I would just be like, oh my God, I miss home so much. But, school was fun too. And to me, that's when, the going back and coming home, because some people go away and they never come home. But when you come home for the summer, I would always be like, oh, I cannot wait to come home. I cannot wait to be done and come back home just so that I could work in my community and be with my friends and my ohana. But that time period and where I was, like college student, college days, right out of high school, you're learning all your life skills and the appreciation for where you came from. So sometimes, it is good to go away so you can see that bigger picture and what's waiting for you at home.
Mahalo. So you come home. What do you do?
I come home.
How do you end up in your program?
So, when I was at Pacific and my major was biology because I thought, okay, optometry. And then I was like, oh, this is kind of boring, because you could shadow. There was college experiences where you can shadow all these. Pacific was also a big health profession school. And so you could shadow all the different graduate programs that they had. And so when I went to shadow the optometry program, I was like, no, this is not for me. I cannot, this is too boring. There wasn't enough engagement and interaction as much as I thought I would have. And so it was junior year and I never know but I just finished my major. I said, I'll just go home and then figure it out from there. I thought I wanted to possibly go into physician assisting. And in order to even apply to the physician assistant program, you had to have 1,000 hours of patient contact. And so I got a job at the hospital, Maui Memorial. And I was a nurse aide there. And so I thought, oh, okay, good. I can get paid and I can get my hours and then I'll apply. And so during that time at the hospital, I was working on the telemetry unit. So we were second to the ICU. So all the cardiac patients, and I would see the people in the beds. They were all ohana or ohana of friends or like our people, our native Hawaii. Like at one point, I think I knew somebody in every single room on the floor. And I was like, holy cow. And so that experience working in our hospital and me thinking I possibly wanted to go into clinical medicine, in that va, I recognized that it was too late. Mahalo to our physicians and our nurses and all the people that are there because we need you. But for me personally, I wanted to be on the opposite side of that spectrum. I wanted to be on the side of prevention. I wanted to keep our people healthy so that we're not in all the beds in the hospital. And so that's kind of where I discovered public health. And because that's prevention, it's health education, it's keeping our people healthy. And so at the time I was, kind of looking for programs and I already knew I wanted to stay in Hawaii. I didn't want to go back into the mainland. Like I did that or live on the continent again. I wasn't going to do that. And plus my focus was native Hawaiian. Like that's the people that I wanted to serve. And so magically, as I was looking, I found UH Manoa had a public health degree in Native Hawaiian and Indigenous health. And I think I was part of the second cohort of that program, second or third. And it's just like magical timing, right? Because what are the chances that I'm here and I'm looking for this program And so I applied to the program because I think, I'm still exploring. I think this is what I want to do. And so I apply. And one day I get this call from Dr. Maile Tawali'i, who is here on this call. She calls me. She was the head of that program at the time. And she says, they don't want to let you in the program, but I built this program for people like you. And so here's the plan. You're going to come to Manoa and you're going to take your classes as an unclassified student. We're going to demonstrate that you can, because part of it was my GPA wasn't that good. My GRE scores was low. And that's like the main reasons why they didn't want to let me in. And so she says, we're going to demonstrate that you can academically handle the rigors of this program. The next semester, you'll reapply and we'll admit you. And so I'm like, who is this lady? I don't even know you. I'm like, what? And I'm so, we're talking stories and she's telling me like, my keiki are in Kaiapuni and you are the type of people that we need. And this program is meant for you. And I'm mad at the system for not admitting you. But she has this whole plan, right? Like I'm thinking in my head, I never even met this lady before. She's over here. She has my whole, how I'm going to get into the program planned. Wow. Wow. And so I mahalo her and I tell this story all the time because if it wasn't for her doing that, right, and believing in me, in whatever I put in my application, because really that's all she had. She had my application and my letters of recommendations, and for her to have devised this whole plan so that I could get in was just amazing to me. And that was a pivotal moment because that's when I realized the importance of needing people like us, people like her in positions of power who can make these kinds of decisions, who can make these kinds of calls. She was the head of the program and that was something that she could do. And so that to me, she is the constant reminder of how as leaders or as heads of whatever you are and whatever you're leading, it's so important for you to speak up and advocate and use your words to fight the battles that people who don't have, the authority to speak up for, to use your leverage, right? Your positions so that we can uplift and ho'oulu everybody. And so I just have so much aloha for Maile. And she still today continues to be a mentor, a kumu, my source of just all the things. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Malia.
Yeah.
So you enter that program. Then when did you decide to, maybe I gotta become a koka?
That was never the plan. And Maile knows this because, I entered the program and it's just amazing, right? Like we talk about, so in that program, it was comparing all these other indigenous models and health systems, like the Maori, the First Nations, the American Indians, and Maile had done tons of work in Indian country and health systems. And so that's when you kind of see America versus our indigenous ways and practices. And I, it was in that program that I started to find my voice, right? It was that first interaction with Maile and that realization like, okay, we got to learn how to speak up, right? Like, yes, I'm that type of learner that I'm going to shut my mouth and I'm going to observe, but we need to also be able to advocate and open our mouths when it's necessary. in that program, and also public health, right? Like having that kahua of Olelo Hawaii and how we see health or Mauliola as everything being connected. And so public health was easy for me in my brain to make the connections. It came like natural, like, yeah, it's all connected, right? Like you think of our ahupua'a system, like, yeah, no more fish because what's happening Mauka, you know? So all these things come into play. And when I was in that program and I was done, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go home. Like, there's not too many people running around with master's degrees. I think I can find one job. Bye. You know, like anybody from Maui does not want to be on Oahu any longer than they need to be. So, you know, I thought, okay, here I go. Let's go back home, planning to move home. And then I was actually a GA at the medical school, and I worked for the Imiho'ola post-baccalaureate program, which is a program that helps disadvantaged students get into medical school. And so because I was there, my tuition and like working there, they would pay my tuition. And so at the time, my boss, Dr. Winona Lee, you know, she knew that I was kind of about to graduate and wanted to move home. And then she says, do you want to continue? We will pay. We will keep you on as a GA and we will pay for a doctorate program that if you're interested. And I was like, what? Wow, what an opportunity, you know? So of course, I'm not gonna not take the chance. So I applied and I only applied to one program. And I was like, okay, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If not, like, I'm going home. And so that's when I got admitted to the PhD program in public health with community-based and participatory research and translational research. So my PhD is very research related, and the skills that I have gained through that, I think just really allowed me to love the data parts of it, because I know that, you know, data's not for everybody, but I was always a numbers person. I love math, I love spreadsheets and data and using it. Mālia taught us, like, data is mana, right? You have enough data. You can prove any point you want to prove. You can make the data say whatever you need it to say to make your case. And so it was fun. I mean, it was the hardest years of my life, writing chapter after chapter after chapter. But through that, you just learn so many skills that I never thought that I would be using. And when I was going through my PhD program, Mālia said, you know, you think that you're busy now, this is just training. Like, it doesn't get any better, Mālia. I hate to tell you, like, you are in training right now, because when you get out into the real world, it doesn't stop. And she was absolutely 1000% correct. So I had good training at UH Manoa in the public health program. And I still think about all the writing and research that went into that. Yeah, it's a lot.
Mahalo. So now you are the po'o of Hui no Keolepono. How has your kahua, your entire journey, help you to be where you are today?
Oh my gosh. I feel extremely privileged to sit as the executive director of Hui no Keolepono. It has always, you know, like, I knew about the hui growing up all the time. But never in a million years did I think that I would be here. Like I knew I wanted to work for the organization eventually, right? Wherever I ended up in healthcare, I wanted it to be here because this is the organization that helped Native Hawaiians in health. It was like the best of my two worlds. And the fact that this system is so special, right? Like the systems, Papa Olalo Kahi, like the fact that we get to do this work is amazing. And I am just like, when I come into work, I am so excited because this is where my culture and my passion in professionally intersect. And every day I'm like, how am I so lucky? Like, how do I get to be here and do this work? And it's exciting. I mean, I'm still saying brand new in my position and I know absolutely nothing, but you know, like my kumu tell me, you gotta work twice as hard. You gotta, you know, like that's still in me. So I'm very much still learning. I'm still learning my job. I'm always learning. I'm learning everything all the time. And it's been really exciting. I mean, we have come very far, I feel like, from the time I started, and just the people in this organization, the people that just have so much aloha for their community. That is why I show up every day scared, not knowing a thing, but people in here deserve a leader that's going to show up over and over and over again, no matter, you know, what state I'm in, whether or not I know what I'm doing. But it's such a team effort and a kako thing. And I tell my team all the time, we're all learning together. Like this is, here we go, you know? And I think too, what's important is like building that pilina, you know, that pilina in the work culture so that everybody get each other's backs, right? Like this organization, I swear, runs on aloha. Like we will work more, kill ourselves because that department needs help. Who's gonna pull the dead weight? Oh, she's out. Okay, who gonna cover? Like we just run on aloha. And like if you come and you visit the hui and you meet the people that work here, I promise you, like you will feel that. And that's because we just love our community so much. And we're working hard, you know, we're working hard to build good things. And it's harder right now not to run super fast and build other things, because that's what, you know, there's a sense of urgency in healthcare, especially when it comes to our traditional practices, when it comes to having accessibility to the types of healing things that our people need, right? Like I said, medicine is great, but that's not always what our people need. And yeah, did that answer the question? I feel like I went around.
It's all connecting. It's all connecting.
Okay.
So, is there any advice or any mana'o you would give your younger self?
My younger self, considering I only have student loans for my undergraduate and they're ridiculous, I probably wouldn't have gone to such an expensive undergrad school. No, I mean, going away was good. Like, you know, that's where you learn your appreciation and how different and how special Hawaii is. But home is good too. University of Hawaii has a lot of good programs that, I mean, you know, anywhere you go, any program, just make sure that it's the right fit for you. But I would tell, yeah, I think that's what I would tell my younger self.
Mahalo. So, For any haumana or any people in our community that is thinking of going to school or anything, what would you, or embarking on a new phase of their life, what kind of mana'o could you share and put out there for them?
I think coming home, come home. I think haumana who are, you know, there's that feeling and sense of like wanting to get off the rock. Go. If that's what your na'au and that's your i'ini, go away and explore and learn and see all the different things that this world really has to offer. But come back home because our communities need you. Our kaiaulu need you, especially in healthcare. I was just talking to Kaiolu because she's thinking of going to medical school, not in Hawaii. And I was telling her, no, you know, in my head, Jabsum really needs you more than you need Jabsum. Because the people that have our worldview, right? Our lens and the way that we see things. Kaiolu being admitted into a medical school class at Jabsum will impact every physician that comes out of her class because of her ike, because of her kahua. Would she have the same impact if she went to a school on the continent? Probably not, because all those doctors that are practicing in the continent is probably going to stay in the continent. The doctors that are, you know, entered Jabsum, majority of them will practice, will come back home. And so we need people like Kaiolu and every other Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander Kauka who went to Jabsum. You guys are that seed, right? That is planted that can affect change in your class and change the dynamic of every Jabsum class that moves through. So come home, be home. Home is great. But like I said, if you have the need to go away, go away. You know, learn what you gotta learn. Do what you gotta do, but come home because our kaiaulu need. We need people to be in every position of all kinds, right? Like even in healthcare, I still need one IT person. I still need one accountant. I still need a grant writer. I still need all these other things in healthcare. And I don't think people realize, like when we say healthcare, it's not just doctor and nurse, right? It's a whole operation we're running here. So find your ono, you know, to those haumana, find your ono, be good at it, and then bring your skills home and help us.
Mahalo nui, Mālia. There are some mana'o within our Q&A. We can address that. Lots of people are just sharing their aloha for you. I guess, does anyone have any questions at this time that they want to ask Coca Purdy? Or is there any last mana'o you want to share, Mālia? Because
I think, I don't know, I think like, and maybe it's this va, right? Like ho'omau things, work things, olelo Hawaii. I mean, we are just in a super exciting time. And to be so young and green in my career, it's scary and it's intimidating, but again, that kahua, right? Like this community that I come from, I just feel like, number one, why me? I ask that all the time, like, why me? Very scary, but also it's almost like I can step into these spaces confident because I know I get like 100 million people behind me, like pushing me, like, no, you got this, right? And just growing up and having that connection to our kupuna, right? Having that ike, like, no, you got this, listen to your na'au, keep going. You gonna feel the pull, right? You gonna know what the right thing is. You have all the tools, right? I have all the oli and pule and mele and hula, and I have all of these things in my va'a, in my umeke, you know, however you hold things. And it's because of Olelo Hawaii and the decision that my makua made for me, right? Like I would not be here if it wasn't my mom and my dad and my tutu lady and my grandma, right? Like, and my mo'oku auhau of people who advocated for Olelo Hawaii to be taught. And it's unbelievable. Like every day, I'm just like, how am I here? This is so amazing. I get to do this work. Like, yes, it's hard, but you know, if not us, then who? Yeah. And I think the support, just the so much support, right? So much people in the background saying, you get them, go. And to the kumu, right? Helala wau no ku'u kumu, like all of the ike that my kumu have instilled in me, all the mentors, all those inoa that you've heard throughout this presentation, and in the beginning, it's really them, right? To honor them. Yeah, I am here because of them.
So we have a now from your Palala. How do you recharge yourself?
How do I recharge myself?
When you work so hard.
My tita is how I recharge myself. Every Sunday, we actually go to Kapoho and we kapukai or hiuwai, and we ho'oku'u, all the things that are carrying us that don't serve us. And we just fill ourselves up with good mana. And that's something that is so important, because when I miss those days in the ocean, come Monday, I'm all over the place. I'm scattered. I cannot focus. I'm everywhere. And it's terrible. It's a terrible feeling. So I make it a point to get into the ocean on a weekly basis. And also our cultural practices. So recently, Auntie Lei Ishikawa started teaching a papa kapa down at Pailoko for the new babies that are joining our family. And so I've been there just learning, you know, her techniques and practicing all the things. And so really I've been looking to the cultural practices. Like that's what feeds me. That's what fills my apu, is engaging in things like hula and going down to kai and making kapa and, you know, just being on the aina outside of the office, taking a walk. Yeah, that's how I refill and recharge.
Mahalo. Our next thing now is, do you envision that there will come a time that eventually you will be mentoring young ones through Hui no Ke Olapono?
Absolutely. I think I started mentoring when I was working at JABSOM, specifically with students that are trying to get into medical school. And I don't feel like I've ever stopped. Even though I'm not there anymore, like that work is still being done. I'm still getting students like, oh my God, there's this person, can you talk to them? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I will always make time for students because that's what my kumu did for me. Like when I pick up the phone and I call my kumu, they're like, yeah, come see me. You know, my kumu always made time. And so again, that is a teaching that I have learned because you guys are the next generation, right? And my kumu will always tell me, Alako did this forever. So who's gonna, you know, who am I passing the torch to? And so it's already, right? Like constantly succession planning, like who's in the pipeline, who's coming up next. It's important to know who those people are. And so always open to mentoring. I give everybody my cell phone and my email. I'm like, call me anytime if you have any questions throughout this process. Like, I will talk you through it. Yeah.
And then another question is, where do you see yourself in 20 years?
20 years. Right here. I don't know. I've never thought about it. I cannot even see myself next week. It is day by day. But that's just where I'm at in life right now. Plenty things happening, and I'm just coming up for air once in a while.
So I have an email.
Yes.
Being at Hui no Ke Olapono, if you could create it to be whatever you wanted it to be for the community, what would it look like? What would it be?
This is like my vision. If I could make Hui no Ke Olapono be whatever I want it to be. So I think for me, I mean, and it's in our mission, right? That we're supposed to be the bridge between Western and traditional healing. And currently in our organization, we have both. We have the ability, you know, we have internal medicine doctors who are seeing patients regularly. We have dentists, you know, just all the Western things. But we also have this traditional healing side. And through that, right, we offer Lomi Lomi services and provide access to families who need Ho'oponopono. My dream is to somehow get these pieces to integrate more, because recognizing that we need Western medicine if we have Western illnesses, right? Like all the chronic diseases that we see, people still need medication to manage that, depending on how severe. If we could integrate la'au lapa'au, right, and get that part of the mix, that is the vision, and that is the goal. Making that happen is what, you know, we're still trying to figure out and navigate. And if you know anything about the healthcare system, you know how cumbersome and difficult that will be. But yeah, my hope is to have more integrated care, right? Right now, our mission is to be the bridge, but eventually I would like the mission to be that we integrate care. And especially because, you know, our people, our Native Hawaiians, sometimes Western medicine isn't what they really need. Like, yeah, it's available because you have insurance and, you know, it can be paid for and covered. But sometimes the healing is that of the unseen, right? It's not the physical. It's not even sometimes the mental, but it's the spiritual aspects of healing. And so when it's that kind of healing that you need, that's what I hope people would come to the hui for eventually. So, yeah.
Mahalo, Malia. Just mahalo for this whole entire hour. You have filled my cup, and I hope you filled everybody else's cup, or apu, whatever you hold. But just mahalo for all that you have shared. And once again, you were dreamed, and then you came to this out, and then look at where you are now. So just mahalo for all that you do, and for taking the time to be here with us today. And mahalo for everyone joining. And I hope that if anyone wasn't able to ask a question, and they still have a question that they want to ask, you guys can email us and we'll be able to address it through email. I want to mahalo Kai'olu for helping with this webinar. Kai'olu, is there anything you wanted to ask or share?
I just wanted to ask Malia again to talk about the kind of kumu that you want to be for now your branches going forward.
Wow. So that's the interesting, because I feel like I'm forever a haumana and never a kumu. But mahalo nui for this ninau. For me, I think, you know, and stepping into this role again was a huge thing, because I'm like the worker bee behind the scenes, putting her head down and just like jamming, doing whatever gotta do. And I think when I stepped into this position as an alakai and a kumu in some ways, my mo'oku auhau comes from ali'i, who were servant leaders. They weren't the kind that just went sit at the top and point fingers and say, you go do this, you go do this. I come from people that were in the lo'i, right? The ali'i that were right there next to the people who were responsible for working in that lo'i. And so I envision myself, and I hope to be that kind of leader, that kind of kumu, the one that will be right there beside you. You know, like I said, I tell my team, like, we're all learning together. We all don't know what we're doing, but it's okay, because we're all in the va'a together, and we're all gonna navigate and figure out how to do this work. I don't ever do anything alone. I don't ever make any huge decisions by myself. Personally and professionally, I'm always like, what do you think about this? Tell me about this, you know, and I do that partly because I wanna, like, again, a concept, right? To makavalu. Like, I need to make sure that I don't have blind spots. I need to see it from all these other angles to be confident in the decision that I am going to make and how we're going to move forward. And so that means having councils, right? That means, like our ali'i did, that means having people that you can go to get mana'o and different mana'o, so that we're making the most informed decision that we can. And so as a kumu, as an alaka'i, as a leader. I don't know. Yeah, I don't ever do anything alone. And while I am what you see, know that there's choke people behind me, like helping me, doing other things. Like I am here because, and nobody on my team is on this webinar because they're all busy doing things that we need to do in order to holomua. And so, yeah, I'm just so appreciative, and yeah, I'm right there with the rest of everybody else in the trenches. And yeah.
Mahalo.
Oh, mahalo nui for that, Nina. Oh, that's a good one.
Okay, if we don't have any more now, mahalo everyone, and look out for our next webinar next month. And then also, because you registered, we'll be sending you the recording. So yeah, mahalo nui.